First Take, Carrie Champion here in studio with Skip Bayless. Stephen A. Smith is in Los Angeles. Good morning, Sass. How are you?
Good morning, y'all. How you doing?
Good morning.
What's up?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Lots to get to. We're getting right to it. Coming up on the show today, first let me say this. Super Bowl champion cornerback Jabari Greer will join the desk. We're excited to have him.
We are.
Absolutely. Share in some of the stories that we're talking about today. He can give us some really good insight. But first, again, let's get with this. More on the Ray Rice investigation. Yesterday afternoon, an Associated Press report says a source told them the NFL received the video in April. Law enforcement officials say he sent a video of the Ray Rice elevator incident to an NFL executive 5 months ago. The law enforcement official played a voicemail from an NFL office number on April 9th, confirming the video had arrived. A female voice expressed thanks and says, quote, "You're right, it's terrible." The law enforcement official can't confirm anyone watched the video and has had no further communication with any NFL employee. The NFL released the following statement, quote, "We have no knowledge of this. We are not aware of anyone in our office who possessed or saw the video before it was made public on Monday. We will look into it." Looking into it for them refers to an independent investigation. We will talk about that in a few moments. But first, Stephen A., your reaction to this AP report?
Well, number one, my initial reaction was that of somebody being stunned because if AP is reporting that a law enforcement official indeed said that he sent the video to the NFL office, has a number inside the NFL office, has a voicemail with a female voice on it saying, "Yes, we got it. I saw it. It's terrible," or something along those lines, because I don't have the exact quote directly in front of me. If indeed there's truth to that, then it's going to be pretty hard for Roger Goodell in the league office to convince anybody that if the video made it to the league office, that Roger Goodell somehow did not see that back in April. So to me, if indeed this report ends up being true, as I said yesterday, I prefaced every single comment that I made about my support of Roger Goodell keeping his job by saying, absent of evidence that the video is something that Roger Goodell did not see, absent of evidence that he saw the video and just ignored it and tried to sweep it under the rug, Roger Goodell deserved to keep his job. But if we find out that indeed he saw the video or had access to the video and decided to ignore it and try to sweep it under the rug, then obviously, in my estimation, that's a fireable offense, and Roger Goodell has to go. But I would like to acknowledge that I still find it difficult to believe that he's seen this tape, Skip Bayless, and I'll tell you one of the biggest reasons why. Because Roger Goodell, at the time that he instituted the 6-game ban for a first-time offender and a lifetime ban for a second offense, Roger Goodell also went on record by acknowledging in his letters to the owners, knowing that that letter would be public, "I got it wrong." That's what he acknowledged. That's what he admitted. So if he had seen the video, it would have been very, very easy for him at that particular juncture to say, "I've seen the video. I have this new evidence. I got it wrong. Ray Rice has to go. And oh, by the way, here's the policy." But he never did that. So I find it very difficult to believe that the commissioner of the NFL, who's got a pretty good reputation, would all of a sudden shove the video aside, ignore it, try to sweep it under the rug, yet come back and acknowledge that he made a mistake with the initial 2-game ruling. He could have simply said then, "I've got the video. I've seen it. I realize now I was wrong. This man has to go." And the fact that he didn't do that at that particular juncture still leads me to believe that he may not have seen the video. But indeed, according to this AP report, if indeed it is true that a law enforcement official sent that video to the NFL office and it was in possession of the NFL office, Roger Goodell's not going to be able to convince anybody that he did not see that video. And if indeed he did see that video, or really legitimately and intentionally decided to avoid looking at it and let Ray Rice off the hook, and that can be proven, under those conditions and those conditions only, Roger Goodell would have to go as commissioner of the National Football League.
You make some fair points, but I don't agree with your ultimate conclusion that you draw. Now, before I get to my conclusion, let me make a fair point here. By all accounts, Roger Goodell, over his 8-year tenure, has done a phenomenal job for the league. let's be clear about this. The owners of this league uniformly like and respect the commissioner they chose to hire. And that, as you well know, is no small task on the part of the commissioner. They are unified around him because this league is enjoying unprecedented prosperity over the last few years. They just make more and more and more money. So obviously they're going to like their CEO, their commissioner. But all that said, trying to be fair, I believe this AP report will be and should be the last straw for Roger Goodell. I believe he will and should lose his job over this. And just to be clear, we've both been in this business a long time, the Associated Press is a highly respected news gathering organization. And as you point out, they went so far as to have the proof and validation of a voicemail that featured not just a league voice, the voice of a female who said, according to the AP, we have it, and this is terrible. Well, yeah, we all agree. It's really, really terrible. So now, we're back to your position versus my position. Your position from the start. If Roger Goodell acquired a tape and saw the tape, he should be fired. I'm going to say what I've said for the last 3 days, and forgive me for repeating myself. But my position is Roger Goodell never wanted to see the tape. If he was informed that they had acquired the tape, it's like, just leave me alone. I told you starting Monday, I don't believe he dropped the ball. I believe he chose not to pick the ball up. When it comes to domestic incidents, this league's position has long been see no evil. I'm going to say it one more time. I believe that the NFL's position has long been, when it comes to a domestic dispute that could lead to violence and had led to violence between one of its players and his wife or his fiance or his girlfriend, the league was like, that's between the man and his woman. We want to stay out of those kinds of disputes to a fault. And we're going to get to this a little later, but I love the statistic provided by Terry O'Neill, the president of NOW, National Organization for Women, in which she said that, and I'm sure she'd done some homework on this, in the past she knows of 50 incidents of domestic violence that came to charges that she thought that the NFL basically pushed under the carpet. I agreed with that. I've been saying that for a couple of days now because that's long been their stance. So is it a league-wide stance? Are there more decision-makers involved than just Roger Goodell? Yes, there are. But in this case, Roger Goodell is the head of this league, of this company, of this organization. So he's going to have to pay the price either way, whether he saw the tape or whether he chose not to see the tape, if in fact he was made aware they did have in their possession at the league office a tape. And now let's talk about the bottom line, and I mean the literal bottom line. You know and I know, ultimately, push will come to shove with these sponsors that pay the bills of this league. And if those sponsors, the major sponsors that we will see during the telecast tonight, if they begin to get cold feet, that their customers are beginning to get turned off by the National Football League by seeing video after video replay of what happened inside the elevator, and then yesterday, and forgive me for even bringing this up because it's so disgusting to me, but yesterday we got to see the security, the full security tape. Remember, the TMZ tape was a cell phone video of the security tape. So it was a little herky-jerky. We saw the extent, we saw the full-on onslaught, if you will, and we saw Ray Rice spit at Janae and then spit at her again, spit on her again. And again, if it's possible it could get any worse, because it's hard to believe it could get any worse, it just became even more despicable and disgusting with the latest video. So my point to you is, at some point, will these sponsors get cold feet because their customers are being turned off? I'm going to guess yes. And trust me, that will be the last straw, because somebody at the league office will have to pay, and obviously we have to go to the top position, the commissioner position.
Couple of things. I completely echo your sentiments on Ray Rice. When I saw him spit at her, You know what? I'm not trying to compare the two or anything, but in a lot of people's eyes, the spitting is just as, if not more, disgusting than the hitting.
It is. It's right
I don't,
there.
you know, I leave that up to other people to debate. Secondly, I appreciate you bringing up Terry O'Neill, the president for the NOW, National Organization for Women, because obviously, you know, yesterday when we ended the show, you know, I was a bit demonstrative and theatrical to some degree in a lot of people's eyes. Let me make sure I make my point. I was addressing specifically her wanting Roger Goodell to be fired because of this one incident, assuming he never saw the tape. If you have a preponderance of evidence circulated, you know, spanning years, where you can point to the inactivity, the lackadaisical approach, the dismissive mentality towards the issue of domestic violence, and that is her case against Roger Goodell, that is an entirely different argument. If the tape was indeed seen or tacitly ignored by Roger Goodell, and that could be proven, that is an entirely different subject. But if it's specifically about, oh, I just don't like the way he handled this particular situation, and Roger Goodell never saw the tape, then I disagree with her position. That's point number 2. Point number 3, when you look at what's transpiring right now, we understand the villain that Ray Rice has become. We understand that he deserves his comeuppance has arrived. It is well deserved. We get all of that, Skip. But where you and I disagree is that your mentality is that he didn't drop the ball, he never picked it up. And I'm saying to you, okay, you can make that argument. I don't know if myself nor anybody else can vehemently dispute that, because clearly the preponderance of evidence that seems to be leaking appears to be, at the very least, that you are the commissioner of a multi-billion-dollar establishment. Don't tell us you couldn't get your hands on the video. I never believed that. I always believed that Roger Goodell could get his hands on the video. Where you and I disagree is that I understand from a business perspective that as the commissioner of a multi-billion-dollar establishment, obligated to exhaust any and all options, at least it appears, to protect the brand. Yeah. And considering the issue of domestic violence, let me tell you something. Let me tell Terry O'Neill for the National Organization for Women, Roger Goodell is not the only person guilty in her, or should be the only person guilty in her eyes, of having, dare we say, a less than diligent approach to addressing the issue of domestic violence. Why is it that everybody is jumping on it now? You know why, Skip? Part of it is guilt, because we realize all of us should have paid more attention to this over the years. We're all guilty of not giving this issue the attention and the fervor and the focus it so richly deserves. So the National Organization for Women and everybody that shares their agenda is absolutely right in their quest to bring elevated attention to this issue, because we've all dropped the ball on it. The media has dropped the ball. The sports leagues have dropped the ball. The athletes, the executives, and owners have dropped the ball. We have the owner for the Baltimore Ravens on the record, essentially paraphrasing him, saying he dropped the ball. So if everybody is guilty of it, and that insidious behavior of neglect is something that can be attached to a bevy of entities throughout our nation, how do we single out Roger Goodell and say he's the one that should suffer for all of this, when all of us could be accused of being as guilty as he is?
That's a nice thought, but in the end, this man runs this league, this organization, and as I said, if somebody has to go down, it starts at the top, and it would start with him.
But the owner of the Baltimore Ravens, who is not only one of his bosses, but also was the guy who directly employed and cut checks for Ray Rice, said he dropped the ball. So, and their organization dropped the ball. So if we're going to say that about Roger Goodell, why can't we say that about Steve Biscotti? Why can't we say that about Ozzie Newsome? And I'm not saying that this should happen to them. Why can't we say that about John Harbaugh,
but it
who
could
was
happen
giving
to them.
press conferences of support prior to the video coming out?
But
we
Stephen
might be heading
Stephen A,
there.
it may come to that. We might be right. We may not saying it should, but it may come to that.
Right. But it may come to that. But what I'm saying to you is that we're calling for the commissioner when there are so many levels to touch on before we even get to commissioner as it pertains to negligence with this particular issue. That's all I'm saying. So everybody, to me, pointing the finger at Roger Goodell before we get to that other stuff, I find that a bit alarming, absent evidence that he had the video and he just ignored it.
Well, right now we're starting at the top, or it looks as if they're starting at the top. Roger Goodell now wanting to, now the Organization for Women wanting them to
but he's not the top.
Resign.
The owner of the Baltimore Ravens is the top.
Well, we could argue that. I think she's saying there's a history of it. So it's not a debate. It's more so she's saying it's a history. Yeah. It's a pervasive history in the culture of the NFL. So that is why she is calling for under his watch.
By the way, in a few minutes, we will discuss Ozzie's role and Steve Bisciotti's role.
We will get there in just a few moments. See no evil. That's interesting. So, again, abuse does not happen until we all see it. Stephen A., good point about the fact that we all are guilty of it. But, again, as we talked about throughout the entire show this past week, we're talking about it now.
Now, many women in this country are not guilty.
Exactly.
Just for the record. Yeah.
Let's leave it there and then talk about the investigation. As a result of the report, the AP report, and the growing criticism about how this case was handled, there is now an independent investigation. Former FBI Director Robert Mueller will conduct a probe into how the NFL handled evidence as it investigated domestic violence claims against former Ravens running back Ray Rice. An NFL spokesman said in a statement that the investigation will be overseen by NFL owners John Mara and Art Rooney. Again, Goodell has maintained that no one at the league had seen the tape prior to Monday. Your take on the investigation, Skip?
Stephen A., to me, this is little more than a desperate attempt on the part of the National Football League to save face and buy time. Right now, the NFL is rather desperately saying to its customers, hey, everybody, we're going to self-police here by commissioning an internal investigation led by a man who was the head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation until just 1 year ago, Robert Mueller. And we're going to get to the bottom of this and earn your trust once again, as we always have. And I'm basically saying baloney, because this investigation will be presided over by two men who have been long-term and big supporters of Roger Goodell's. That's John Mara from the Giants, as you know, and Art Rooney from the ownership of the Pittsburgh Steelers, two of the cornerstone franchises of this league. So am I going to trust the findings here? I'm sorry, it's hard for me to trust. My trust is already being eroded, and eroded much more last night with the AP report. So to me, this is just dancing as fast as you can. And it's also trying to buy time, because I'm going to remind you, remember what we went through with the Jonathan Martin incident with the Dolphins? Ted Wells assigned to do an internal investigation, and it seemed to go on forever.
Buying time.
4 months to go on, and for many of the fans, it will be out of sight, out of mind. So we kind of forget about it. It's a way to put it on hold while we let the internal investigation run its course. Okay? So to me, all you need to know is that the mere fact that the NFL commissioned this internal investigation should indicate to you that there was sufficient, credible internal suspicion that they really screwed this up.
Of course.
That they need to self-police it. So that's somewhat of an admission unto itself, that we think this is serious enough that we need to look hard at what just happened, and we'll get somebody from the outside in. And again, Robert Mueller's now part of a very powerful Washington, D.C. law firm, which has represented the NFL before in its DirecTV negotiations. It's just hard for me to completely trust that we will get to the bottom of this through this internal investigation.
Wait, let me just quickly follow up. You're saying they have started this independent investigation to buy time so that it goes away, so that we don't stay focused on this issue?
Sure. I mean, it's a way to push us all to the back burner while we wait and see what comes of this. I've heard enough. I have enough respect for and belief in the Associated Press. I'm buying what they're reporting, and as I just said in the previous topic, that's all I needed to know about Roger Goodell's future as the commissioner. Go ahead, Stephen A.
Skip Bayless. Did the AP, which we both respect, did the AP report that Roger Goodell saw the video?
Did not. They don't know.
Exactly. They didn't report that. So when we say we're relying on the report, what we're relying on the report is that a law enforcement official informed them that indeed the video was sent to the NFL League office, and the NFL League office had the video. Now, again, if they had the video, there's no excuse whatsoever for Roger Goodell to not have seen the report. I totally get you. I'm with you on that. And to me, all of those things, again, if Roger Goodell saw the video, or he refused to see it and swept it under the rug intentionally in an effort to let Ray Rice off the hook, he's got to go. He has to be fired. But I maintain my position that that is the only scenario under which the commissioner of the National Football League, who has been connected with the NFL for about 3 decades, who had a lot to do with its growth, particularly in recent memory, to elevate the NFL to the #1 sport in this nation, a sport that we all love, I think that to some degree, not totally, but to some degree, he deserves the benefit of the doubt. I haven't heard anybody call Roger Goodell a liar. I've heard things that have not been said fondly about him when it comes to players and the Players Association. But the owners love him for a reason. Obviously, he makes them a lot of money. But also, this is a guy that walked in and was labeled the czar because he was all about discipline. He was all about reeling players in. He was all about making sure that you didn't impugn or sully the integrity of the NFL brand. He was the one that introduced the notion to us that you don't just have an obligation to represent us as football players on the field. You have an important obligation to represent us well off the field. He was the one that introduced that. He was the one that said, I don't have to wait until the court acts before I act. So he has a reputation as being somebody who's trying to clean things up. Clearly, he dropped the ball here. Clearly, he deserves all the criticism and the cynicism.
Time out.
Sure.
Okay, I fully comprehend your position. Now, how do you feel about the NFL's self-commissioned investigation?
Well,
what does it say?
I don't like it from the standpoint that is profound. As profound as the respect is that we all have for the Maras and the Rooney families. Because when you talk about royalty amongst NFL ownership, does it really get any better than that? I am not questioning or trying to impugn their integrity in any way. But the mere fact that they're NFL owners and they're involved in the investigation rings hollow to me. No one directly associated with the NFL should have anything to do with an independent investigation. The independent investigation should be independent of the NFL in terms of information gathering.
Good.
So that is my position. Having said all of that, I still say that Roger Goodell deserves the benefit of the doubt until you've got him dead to rights. Because to me, short of lying to us all, including owners, about seeing the tape and sweeping it under the rug, I don't believe that Roger Goodell deserves to be fired for this.
There's his story and then there's history. Now everyone must recall what was said and what was not said in the Ray Rice investigation. Ray had given a story to John Harbaugh and I, and what we saw on the video was what Ray said. Ray didn't lie to me. He didn't lie to me. That was the GM of the Ravens, Ozzie Newsome, Hall of Famer, first black GM in the NFL. By all accounts, considered by many, and we've talked about it on the show, one of the great general managers, saying, we heard about it, but we didn't see it. So today we asked the question, what is your take on what Ozzie Newsome is saying about Ray Rice? Stephen A.
Well, obviously that's egregious, but at the same time, the obligation that myself and Skip and you and others have to articulate ourselves cogently, clearly, appropriately, doesn't always fall on that onus doesn't always fall on other people. I think that if Ozzie Newsome was being approached today, I kind of think he would word it a little bit differently, because according to Biscotti, the owner, along with Dick Cass, the president, along with the league office, they all gave the impression that there was a bit of ambiguity from Ray Rice as it pertained to what transpired between him and his then fiance, now wife, Janae. And when they met with Ray Rice and his wife, and she said some of the things that she said, they were talking about there was a bit of ambiguity there compared to what the video showed. So when you look at Ozzie Newsome and he says something along the lines, he didn't lie to me. I haven't spoken to Ozzie Newsome about this. I haven't spoken to him at all. But one would surmise what he's trying to say. And I guess I'm just guessing here because, again, I haven't spoken to him. One would surmise that what he's alluding to is that the guy it's not like the guy came to me and said he didn't hit her, that he didn't do anything wrong or anything like that. But in terms of the specifics, I think it's clear that there was a bit of ambiguity involved on the part of Ray Rice, if that's what everybody is saying, because I sincerely doubt that Ray Rice was very, very open and forthcoming and vivid in terms of what transpired in that elevator based on the video that we saw.
Here we go again. This slippery slope, tricky question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not sure. Again, we're talking about potentially when good people make bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
By all accounts, I don't know Ozzie the way you know Ozzie, but I know a whole lot of people who are close with him and who've worked closely with him. Everybody swears by him. He was a great football player who, by the way, has been a great general manager. Now, let's sweep that aside. So, according to the story I read, Ozzie was very explicit about this. I knew exactly what transpired inside that elevator. I'm slightly paraphrasing, but that's what I got from the story. I didn't see it on camera, so maybe I'm slightly exaggerating that, but it came across that Ozzie is basically saying, because he loves Ray Rice, that team loves, we know that organization loved this young man. And Ozzie was so close with him that he's saying, Ray did not lie to me. He told me exactly what transpired. Now, I don't know about the gory details. Did he get into, what I mean. I don't know.
But that's what
did
I'm saying.
Get into spitting? Did he get into two shots with his strong hand, his left hand, because he's left-handed? Did he get into that? I don't know.
Skip, interject. Allow me to interject for just one quick second. Did he sit there and say, I spit in her face? Did he sit there and say, man, I cocked back and I hit her with a left hook with a closed fist. I punched her in the face. Did he do that? I'm sorry to be that vivid on national television,
but, right.
but I'm saying, but based on what I'm saying,
that's what Ozzie's saying. He did not lie to me.
Or did he say, I hit her? Now, that mind you, no matter what, it's bad enough because you should have hit her. Okay. And we get that. But when it's a difference between saying he didn't lie to me and he was explicit and very vivid with what transpired.
Yeah.
And what I saw in that video was completely in line with every word he said to me. I didn't hear that.
I kind of did.
You did?
Now, again, but I would like to see it on camera. Maybe you can reach him later and try to get his more explicit version.
I tried to call him twice. But I also remember this quote. Yeah. I tell you what quote. See, everybody's looking at this Ozzie Newsome quote. He didn't lie to me. You know what quote I find most incriminating? But I applaud the owner for admitting and owning up to this. Baltimore Sun. Quote from Biscotti. The buck stops with me. I can't second guess anybody that helps me run this business. I think that's unfair. Last sentence here, Skip.
Yeah.
We kind of heard what we wanted to hear and imagined what we wanted to imagine because we loved Ray. So essentially what he's saying is that whatever evidence was presented to them, they kind of almost ignored because they wanted to give Ray Rice the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
So to me, that's far more incriminating because you're admitting it, although you can be applauded for your honesty, you're admitting it And on top of it all, you're the owner who's over Ozzie Newsome. And that's where it gets dicey.
Okay. All right. Now, back to the point, which is, and we're not sure how explicit Ray was with Ozzie Newsome, but was he equally, however explicit, in the presence of the commissioner? And he had the NFLPA's lawyer there, and Ray had his representatives there. Was he equally explicit? However explicit he was with Ozzie, was he that way, that forthcoming with the commissioner? Because
the commissioner said...
Yeah, go ahead.
The commissioner said, once he saw the video, that Ray Rice's testimony to him was a bit ambiguous.
He did. He used that word.
He did use that word. He did use that word. So he implied that Ray Rice was not completely forthcoming of what was seen on that video. Then he also said that he was leaning on the testimony of his wife, who was vehemently supportive of him, and that's a different debate for folks affiliated more with domestic violence than you or I.
Yeah.
That's more, they can talk about that. I ain't touching it. My point to you is that with all of that going on, what it comes down to is, to me, Skip, you're right. Do you believe that Ray Rice was vivid and explicit and forthcoming with Roger Goodell? Because then if you're Roger Goodell, why do you need the video?
Thank you.
See
That's why I remain suspicious about how much Ray did. I think Ray was forthcoming with the commissioner. It's why I said yesterday. I'm suspicious that Roger Goodell is using the word ambiguous as an excuse for Roger Goodell.
Yes.
Because he effectively, and I know we use this to a fault, but he threw Ray under the bus. Like,
and
he was less than truthful.
Time out. We're forgetting. Our Chris Mortensen is reporting he knew what was on the video 3 months ago. How
did he, Chris?
Chris knew. He said it was explained to him what was on the
NFL
source
sources,
in the NFL told him that he knew what was on the video 3 months ago. So if Chris knew, they had to know. I'm sorry.
But you also, there's no question that Roger Goodell dropped the ball, which is why he's in the line of fire right now. But when we talk about the man ultimately, or potentially rather, losing his job, the reason why is because he's being accused now of possibly lying about seeing the video. You can't be the paragon of virtue, the czar of discipline, using a heavy hand with players and owners and executives alike throughout these years, and then you're caught on record lying.
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute because we're going to talk about what his responsibility is as the commissioner of the league. But finish your point here. Okay,
so now we have to swing our sights back to the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah. If, in fact, early on in this process, as Ozzie Newsome says, Ray was completely honest with them, did not lie, then you have to ask another tough question about Ozzie. Was that self-incriminating to acknowledge that?
There is no question that it was self-incriminating, Skip, but I think that Ozzie, to some degree, was taken off the hook. When your boss, who happens to be the owner cuts the checks, says, we all dropped the ball because he said, and this starts with me because I didn't want to believe anything about Ray. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. The exact quote here is, we kind of heard what we wanted to hear and imagined what we wanted to imagine because we loved Ray. If the owner is on the record saying that, then it goes from there.
Okay.
Ozzie Newsome is the GM. Ozzie Newsome is not the president.
All right.
And he's not the owner.
Okay, I'm with you, which is why Kerry raised the issue. Does the owner and or the general manager deserve some blame and some punishment here?
Absolutely.
As we begin to unravel all this? Yes,
they've already acknowledged that they deserve blame. So you have to decide whether you want to punish them or not, but there's no question that they deserve blame. They are on the record, and I give them credit, huddling together, sitting down, all together, and like, we dropped the ball on this. We didn't do the right thing. We heard what we wanted to hear, and we believed what we wanted to believe.
Right.
That's just an admission of guilt right there.
Stephen A., your quote that you're reading from Bouchatti is really on point, and I think that seems to be the sentiment within that organization. He's a good guy. We wanted to believe what we wanted to believe, and that went out of it.
Okay, so last quick point.
Yeah.
So if, in fact, we're going all the way back now to April, if if Ray Rice was forthcoming with them, unfortunately in April, that's when you say, gee, Ray, we love you, but we can't keep you.
But he didn't.
Because they didn't do that.
Nope.
But because it was so egregious, as you say.
Hold on.
If Ray came completely clean about what happened, it's one of those sorry Ray moments. We got to cut bait here.
I totally agree. But because they didn't do that, Skip, now what are you saying? Do you think that the owner should have the team confiscated from him? Do you think we should have? Now, obviously, Donald Sterling was an entirely different issue with the NBA, but what should happen to Biscotti
You mean
now,
be
Skip?
forced to sell is what you're saying. I mean, the league can't take his team from him.
I'm like,
what
are you saying? That's right. What are you saying?
Do you have an answer for that?
I don't know yet.
Yeah.
You know what? It's a great question that I'm not sure.
Simmer. Let's
See,
go
I'm not
simmer.
sure.
I do know. You dropped the ball. You get excoriated in the court of public opinion. It may affect your dollars. Find a way to make it affect your dollars in one way or another. And you move on from here. Not because they're innocent, Skip, but because we're all guilty.
The Ravens and Roger Goodell decided that because fans had seen the video, because people in the U.S., across the U.S. watching television, because we had seen the video, then they were going to take action. That's exactly the opposite of good leadership. As soon as you start scratching the surface even a little bit, what you find is instance after instance after instance of domestic violence. More than 50 incidents of domestic violence that rose to the level of charges being made on Roger Goodell's watch, and nearly all of them swept under the rug. And it is an NFL institutional problem. It is not an individualized Ray Rice problem.
That was now President Terry O'Neill yesterday. And when the NFL announced that it would conduct an independent investigation, O'Neill released the following statement, which is there on your screen. Appointing Robert Mueller as an independent investigator to only look into the Ray Rice domestic violence case is not enough. It's just window dressing. The NFL does not just have a Ray Rice problem. They have a violence against women problem. Now continues to ask for Roger Goodell to resign and for his successor to appoint an independent investigator with full authority to gather factual data about domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking within the entire NFL community, not just regarding the Ray Rice incident, and to recommend real and lasting reforms. Yesterday on the show, when this information first came out, now demanding that Roger Goodell resign, we were just reacting. We've had a moment to let it digest.
Well, the show was almost over.
We had like
Yes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
We've had a moment to let it digest. There's been other developments since then. Stephen A., your thoughts on the fact that now would like Commissioner Goodell to step down?
First of all, I agree with her on her second point 100%. I totally agree with an independent investigator taking over the matter and looking into these issues pertaining to domestic abuse on a multitude of levels, whether it's sexual assault or and beyond, everything that she mentions. I totally agree with that. I want to also put out there that I reached out to Terry O'Neill yesterday. I wanted to invite her on my radio show, Sirius XM Mad Dog Sports Radio, 1 to 3 every weekday. I was like, come on. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about this because I vehemently disagree with her first point. And the reason why I vehemently disagree, and I stand by that position right now, right here today, is very, very simple. Absent facts that show Roger Goodell saw the video and swept it under the rug, or just swept it under the rug in his own way, he should not be fired. Now, if that happens, then he should be fired. If it didn't, he shouldn't be fired. When she brings up an absence of leadership or whatever the case may be, or I'd like to ask her, who's been a leader on this particular issue outside of people like the National Organization for Women and those who share their agenda? The fact is, the organization's very existence is predicated on the need to bring attention to these issues because society as a whole hasn't done a good enough job of doing so. And so if Roger Goodell showed an absence of leadership, it would be on this issue. But I think if you spoke to the 32 owners he works for, I don't think they would tell you that outside of this issue, there's an absence of leadership that Roger Goodell has shown. So on this particular issue, he has dropped the ball, apparently. On this particular issue, he needs to show up, step forward, and do a better job. On this particular issue, he didn't do his due diligence. Last time I checked, he took over in 2006. or the NFL's been in existence long before that. Where was the domestic violence policy in existence? It wasn't then. It is now. Now, it might be in the aftermath of Ray Rice, and it should have been in place years earlier. And like she said, there's about 50 incidences that are on the books on Roger Goodell's watch over the course of the last 8 to 9 years. Okay, fair enough. But at the same time, Roger Goodell, by and large, has to be measured by his body of work and the totality of the job that he has done, absent a video showing him egregiously sweeping it under the rug and flat out ignoring it. But that's my point here, Skip. I look at Roger Goodell and I'm saying, if he didn't lie and he didn't see the video,
okay,
I don't believe he should be fired because of this, and I don't think he should be blamed for domestic violence issues that have permeated his league, because it exists in our society as well, and a lot of people are to blame about that.
Okay, look, off what happened yesterday, I respect your position on this. I'm sure Terry O'Neill would respect your position, but you got a little too worked up yesterday, and you got a little personal. And
I don't think I got personal.
Okay, all right. You did say she was off her rocker. She's not off her rocker. She might
I was
be
just
some
talking
things,
about how wanting Roger Goodell suspended.
Okay, that's fine.
That's
fine. Okay, we're good.
I don't know her.
Now let's get back to now, National Organization for Women. Just for the viewers who don't get this, don't know the backdrop. This organization was founded in 1966. It is 550,000 members strong. It is run by a woman, Terry O'Neill, who went to Northwestern and then Tulane Law School. She is a victim of domestic violence herself. So obviously she's very emotional. She has a stake in this. But I loved her point because she made my ongoing point much more strongly than I have been able to make it.
This is true.
Because she came with a number, more than 50 incidents on Goodell's watch of domestic abuse that was raised to the level of charges. So this is significant, all of which have been basically, and we have to go case by case, but basically they've all been swept under Roger Goodell's carpet. That has been my point since Monday. I don't like it. Again, I have been enlightened this week. I can't tell you how much I've learned. You're right, Stephen A. I feel guilty. We all, certainly a lot of males, feel guilty. A lot in the media feel guilty because I didn't know enough. And yet, I have known enough to look back at Roger Goodell's record here. And boy, it's Roger Dodger. It's just that they did not want to deal with this issue. They have never wanted to confront it, to actually address it the way it needed to be addressed with this new and stronger policy, which came, as Terry O'Neill suggests, it's complete reaction. It wasn't proaction. It was they were forced. Their hand was forced by a video to finally say, okay, you got me. And Roger Goodell says, I was wrong.
But look, to your point, within the last 2 years, this is the last 2 years, Roger Goodell's been the commissioner since 2006. Within the last 2 years, let me indulge for just one moment, had a researcher pull up some domestic violence cases, just a few, all players still in the league, one accused of assaulting his wife at their home, nothing happened. Another slapped girlfriend in a dispute over a cell phone.
You want to use their names?
Nothing happened, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Third-degree assault, unlawful imprisonment, nothing happened. Accused of third-degree assault. Another case, risk of injury to a child, disorderly conduct in dispute. Girlfriend screamed for help because the child was there. Nothing happened. The list goes on and on. Again, these are just seven cases within the last 2 years where we asked what happened, and according to them, the resolution still undetermined. That information from USA Today NFL Players Arrest Database. Terry made a very powerful point, and all it was that under his watch, there's been a problem. It probably has been a problem before his watch, but under his watch, there's been a problem. And I was leaning more toward your thoughts, Stephen A. Maybe this is too much to ask for him to resign. But the more and more I hear about this case and we're learning about this case, I'm starting to believe he just didn't want to see the video. And if that is the case,
hold on,
I'm leaning towards the fence that he may need to step down.
Maybe so. And you have a right to feel that way, particularly as a woman, because the fact of the matter is one of the bigger elephants in the room, Kerry, is that you have every right to be far more sensitive to this than we are, because the numbers show that 85% of the victims of domestic abuse are women. So there's a level of heightened sensitivity that you should have, and that absolutely exists. Although men have that sensitivity, some sensitivity to it as well. I grew up on the streets of New York City. I mean, I grew up in Hollis, Queens. There were criminals that I knew, Skip, that would beat a brother down if he saw the brother putting his hands on a woman. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, it's almost universally recognized that it's simply something that you don't do. So we understand that, and let's get that out the way right now. The other point that I'd like to make, Skip, I'd like to thank you for enlightening me about Terry O'Neill, because one of the things you're thinking about the title, you're thinking about president. You forgot about the fact that the likelihood is that if you're heading the organization, you probably were a victim yourself. So when I said that she was off a rocker about Roger Goodell wanting him fired, specifically alluding to the Ray Rice issue, there was a level of sensitivity that I should have exercised, and I apologize to her for that. So
good for
let's
you.
get that out the way too.
Good for you.
Let's get that out the way too.
Good.
So I understand that, but I was just talking about suspending Roger Goodell. I certainly didn't disagree with anything else that she said.
We got
now. With that being said, let's also understand, Skip and Kerry, that when y'all point these things out, am I beyond the pale to take into consideration that Roger Goodell may have very well had some resistance to deal with as it pertains to collective bargaining negotiations with the Players Association? Some of the things that should have been implemented before ultimately being implemented now, and how the league itself, whether it's the 32 owners, whether it's the Players Association, whether it's player representatives or the like, felt that there were other priorities to deal with, and that was fighting a quote-unquote losing battle. I don't know the answer to those questions. My response to that, however, is neither does any of you or anybody else. So when we say the commissioner, is it possible that that's the easy way out? That that's letting a whole bunch of other people off the hook who could have paid rapt attention to this as well, but neglected to do so? It's not as simple as people are making it out to be. The only part that's simple is if Roger Goodell knew that tape existed and ignored it, or had possession of that tape and saw it and still tried to sweep it under the rug. That's on him. But the other stuff gets a bit more complicated.
We have a special guest at the desk today. He's currently a free agent, 10-year vet. He also won a Super Bowl ring with the Saints back in 2010. I think you guys remember that. We welcome to the desk Jabari Greer. Thank you so much for being here.
So glad to be. Those
welcome
were
to the show,
awesome
bro.
highlights, man.
You look like a rock star.
Who was that guy?
Yeah.
Stephen A, he said he missed you last time. He misses you again. Can you get back to the studio sooner than later?
Jabari, I blame you. I mean, all you have to do is give a brother a call and say, look, this is when I'm going to be here. And I would have been there.
See, that screen right here, man, looks like some 2020 stuff, man. It looks so far in the future.
That's the real size of his head.
That's right.
It's
That's
not,
right.
No. We're being nice.
See the hairline back? Look, man, I'm about a year away from looking like George Jefferson, but it's all right.
Come on
it's
home,
all right.
man. Bring it on home.
Allow me to say, Kerry,
yes.
I'm inclined not to like Jabari because,
Why?
unfortunately,
I
he
know.
went to the school that is my arch rival.
Yes.
I went to Vanderbilt and he went to
Yes.
Tennessee,
Yes.
and unfortunately, he kicked our tail every
Okay.
time.
All I can say is you've been nothing but a gentleman. The last time you were here, as well as today, love your demeanor. We're happy to have you here.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. I love it here, and obviously being with such professionals such as yourself,
Yes.
it's always an opportunity.
I paid him to say that. Well, let's talk about this because there's a game tonight, 8:25 Eastern. Steelers Steelers and Ravens play. Both teams missed the playoffs and are looking to turn things around this season. Both have had some off-the-field distractions. But let's talk about what's going to happen tonight at M&T Bank Stadium. What do you expect, Jabari?
Man, I expect the Ravens to come out ready to play. Adversity is a tremendous motivator in the NFL. When they go through things like this, teams band together. And M&T Bank is a tremendous place to play. The crowd there is ready to get back to some football. I think that anything that happens off the field, as soon as you come on the field and start playing football, it's a great equalizer. So even though it was horrible what happened, I know that these fans are ready to go out there and cheer and get back to some football. So and you got to think about it. Baltimore Ravens, those guys, they still have Torrey Smith, Joe Flacco, Steve Smith is playing like a beast. He's still jumping over people and stiff arming DBs.
Beautiful name.
Yeah.
Beautiful name. Best name in football.
I like the Baltimore Ravens tonight, and this is a big time rivalry game, so we're going to see some good football tonight.
You like the Ravens in the game?
I do like the Ravens in the game, even though they're going through some adversity right now, and the backfield is going to be switched up. I like young man Justin Forsett. He's been a journeyman for the last 5 years. He's been on 5 different teams, in 7 years.
Yeah.
And this guy has just been plugging away. He's great in space. He can take it up the middle. Just watch what I say. Watch tonight. Justin Forsett's going to have a big game.
All right, Stephen A., what do you expect tonight?
Oh, I expect the Ravens to beat the Steelers tonight because I don't like what I saw from the Steelers once they had a 24-point lead and let the Cleveland Browns erase it and almost win that football game. And to go into Baltimore with the emotions running high, with Peter back in the lineup with Flacco, having Steve Smith still capable of playing the way that he's playing with Torrey Smith and Jacoby Jones and those boys, I just think that it's one of those situations where the defense will be inspired. The Steelers won't be able to run the ball nearly as effectively as they were able to do, at least at some increments, against Cleveland. And I don't think that they're going to be spotted 24 points. I think on a night like tonight, it just appears to be destiny pushing the Ravens forward. Remember, a team that starts 0-2, only 12% of them have made the postseason. So it's something that the Baltimore Ravens recognize they can ill afford to do, to fall into that kind of hole, particularly within the AFC North Division. Big Ben Roethlisberger is going to have a good year. We don't know what is going to happen with Le'Veon Bell and LeGarrette Blount and those boys, but in the end, I just think a night like tonight is ultimately going to work against the Pittsburgh Steelers, not for them. I definitely think that they'll split this year, but because this game is in Baltimore, I think that'll help Baltimore get the edge and they'll win this game.
I agree with what both of you said, but not nearly as strongly as you made the case, especially you, Jabari. You said that adversity can be a great motivator. It can also be a great distraction. How many times have we seen after a game that a team said, our heads just weren't in this game because we had so much going on this week? Now, will it unify or will it split this team because its minds are elsewhere? If one team can get its attention, it would be the Pittsburgh Steelers because of this great rivalry. So now we're back to, let's just do the pure football. Which team is better? The Ravens are a little better than the Steelers to me. And yet the Steelers looked dominant in the first half against the Browns, up 27-3. And then you want to talk about falling apart and going Jekyll Hyde? The Pittsburgh Steelers at home gave up 288 yards in the second half. That they turned Brian Hoyer into Peyton Manning, because he did look like he goes 15 of 20 for 173 in the second half with a touchdown and no interceptions. Pittsburgh Steelers in the second half gave up 121 yards rushing. So even though I'm not sure the Ravens' hearts are completely in this game, I just think they're a whole level better than the Steelers are right now. And I think on defense they're much better than the Steelers are. My only issue with your prediction was you had the audacity to include Joe Flacco's name as a strength of the Ravens, right? Yeah. You threw it in there just like on the fly, and I'm thinking that's a plus or a minus because to me, again, I'm rooting for them because I picked them to win a wild card. But in their game against Cincinnati, when push came to shove at the end of the game, when they had a chance, they were up 16-15 early in the fourth quarter, and then they lost 23-16, as you know. But Flacco wasn't very good at the end of that game. So do you really trust Joe Flacco?
Oh, I do. I do. You know, I don't know him personally, but I've played against him, and in my experience, this guy throws a touch. He has a touch on a deep ball that's one of the best in the league.
It is.
And you have to keep in mind, they have John Harbaugh. This guy is a good coach. He knows how to put people in position to win. He's a Super Bowl winning coach, and obviously he's going to put themselves in a position to be successful. Now, to your other point, when you were saying that adversity, you don't believe adversity is a good motivator.
It can be a distraction.
It can be a distraction, but being a player, having the adversity that we had with the bounty issue,
Sure.
knowing that we were only playing for each other when nobody else believed in us, we buckled down, and there's a lot of games in which we just willed our way through. So I understand that adversity can be a distraction in some sense, but I believe the leadership is there for the Baltimore Ravens for it not to be. Once you get in the white lines, That's a great equalizer.
Okay,
that's
but
going to be
didn't
tonight.
the year after Bountygate, then it took its toll, right?
It took its toll because we had, I mean, obviously our leadership was gone.
Yeah.
Their leadership is in place.
It is. What leadership is left after
What leadership
Ray,
is left? Yes,
right,
yes.
okay.
But
and
but Daryl Smith he's a good leader himself, and I know that they have guys in place on the offensive side of the ball that's going to step up and take that role.
Okay, I'm going to go close, high scoring tonight. I'm going to go up to I'm going to say Ravens 30, Pittsburgh 28.
When does that ever happen in this type of game?
They do. They score points. They go up and down.
Yeah. This is a hard-nosed game. I say 17-14.
Really?
Ravens, yes.
Okay.
I agree with that. I think it's going to be somewhere along the line, Skip, at 2017.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen.
We'll see.
We're all on the same page. Jabari, you're hanging out with us throughout the show. You're going
Yes.
to take a break because it was hard work. Was that hard?
Not at all.
Fantasy football's back, and DraftKings.com isn't messing around. DraftKings.com is America's favorite one-week fantasy football site where you can win enormous cash prizes every week. Hurry and get free entry into the Millionaire Maker event, where first place takes home $1 million. Head to DraftKings.com now and enter promo code FOCUS to play free to become a millionaire. DraftKings.com. Bigger events, bigger winnings, bigger millionaires. Enter FOCUS for free entry now at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
In light of the Associated Press report that has confirmed that the NFL office did indeed receive the video of Ray Rice and then fiancee Janae Palmer from inside an elevator, an anonymous NFL owner has spoken out about the effect this could have on the league and Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell is not a liar. He's a good man who always wants to protect the NFL. He's respected and liked by every owner I know. I believe Roger and the league. I trust them. But I have to say that if this report is true, this is very bad for our league and for Roger. No owner will support him if this is true. Not one. Let's get Bayless your reaction.
It's a powerful statement, even anonymously delivered. But Stephen A., look, we've spoken and spoken, trying to be as fair as possible about all the good to great things that Roger Goodell has done for this league. He is widely liked and respected by all of his quote-unquote bosses, 32 owners. He has kept them unified, and this league is enjoying unprecedented prosperity, which is all, in the end, it really cares about. So now we have an AP report, Associated Press, as credible a news-gathering organization as we have in this country, validated by a voicemail in which whoever sent this tape to the league office is speaking with a female in the league office who says, we got it, we got the tape. I'm not sure what her rank is. It's not quite clear.
Yeah. But she said, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
it's awful.
It's terrible, she said. It's terrible. Yeah. Okay? Given that, I'm going to take that much to the bank. Now, you and I disagree on what happened after that. You're saying all along, if he did not, well, let's do your point. If he did see the tape and chose not to act, then he should be gone. And I'm saying that I believe he chose not to see the tape, as I called it earlier, see no evil kind of position that the league has often taken when it comes to domestic abuse. I believe this is going to be the last straw for this commissioner. And I don't love calling for people's jobs, especially a man who's done such a good, 8-year tenure job. But I'm going to quickly point out to you, because you and I went back and forth from, it seemed like months over this. Bountygate, New Orleans Saints. We may bring this up with Jabari here in a little bit.
Right.
But remember what happened. Finally, Paul Tagliabue, the previous commissioner, was a mutually agreed upon arbitrator. Remember what he decided? He reviewed and said, these suspensions must be vacated. They are much too harsh. And you and I went back and forth and back and forth. But
and then I apologized to Jonathan
Vilma. You sure did.
Because you know, the way Roger Goodell had described him, he missed the boat on that one. Jonathan Vilma was wrongly convicted per se,
so
in a court of Roger Goodell's.
That's well said. Thank you very much. So that was not a good thing on Roger Goodell's resume. and this is a really, really bad thing, because this is, to my mind, the worst thing, image-wise, PR-wise, that has ever befallen the National Football League. To me, much, much worse than something I lived through, which was Pete Rozell's decision to play on the Sunday after the Friday that JFK was assassinated back in 1963.
Right.
So, to me, I think Roger Goodell, once again, did not drop the ball on this. He chose not to pick it up. And I'm going to restate one last time my position, and I much appreciate and thank Terry O'Neill, the president of National Organization for Women, for providing a detail that more than 50 incidents of domestic abuse rose to the level of charges and were basically swept under Roger Goodell's carpet. Somebody should pay for that. Somebody should pay for the see no evil approach this league has had. Like, we don't want to get involved when it comes to a man and his woman, because that's not any of our business. That seems to be the general attitude of this league. And is that emanating just from Roger Goodell, or is it from many people who are in decision-making positions and decades worth? I'm with you on that. But at some point, if in fact the sponsors feel threatened by this,
it's a wrap.
If in fact some begin to pull out because they feel like their customers have seen the latest video one too many times, the clear video, the actual security video, including the spitting upon wife or then fiance by Ray Rice, man, bottom line gets threatened, somebody has to pay, and I'm afraid it's going to be the commissioner.
First of all, let's get a couple of things out of the way, and let's stop giving the impression that certain things are a debate when they are not. If Roger Goodell lied to everybody when he went on TV with CBS and when he called Christine Brennan of the USA Today and spoke to her, if he is lying about what he said in regards to whether or not he saw the video, he should be fired. There is nobody, not a player, not a pundit, and from what we're seeing, not even an NFL owner who will stand up and support him. You went and on national television, you talked to a national publication that is USA Today. If you indeed have lied about seeing the video, there's no defense for Roger Goodell. It is what it is. So let's get that out the way, Skip Bayless. But now, when you talk about somebody has to pay, let's put things in its proper context. We're talking about, and let me preface my comments by saying, one case, as Roger Goodell said, it's too many. We understand that. Any man that puts his hands on a woman, he's a punk. He needs to be dealt with. Plain and simple. Okay? Get that out the way. Terry O'Neill, for the National Organization for Women, said that there are at least 50 cases, okay, where, what did she say exactly, Skip?
Where it rose to the level of charges.
And nothing
rose
happened.
To the level of charges. 50 cases that have rose to the level of charges. There are 1,800 players in the league. Roger Goodell has been there since 2006. It's approaching 9 years. And over the course of 9 years, 50 players in a league that exists at the number of 1,800 have been. Now, why do I bring up that number, Skip, and say put it in the context? It's not that it's not a problem, because we understand it's a problem. But when I say microcosm of society, it comes into play. Why? Deontay Morris, our researcher, just threw these numbers at us. 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence during her lifetime. Women ages 20 to 24 are at greatest risk of becoming victims of domestic violence. We know NFL players are relatively young, so chances are that women are young as well. Every year, 1 in 3 women who is a victim of homicide is murdered by her current or former partner. 30.3% of women in the United States have been slapped, punched, or shoved by an intimate partner in their lifetime, and 3.2 million women have experienced severe violence by an intimate partner. Look at those numbers. This is not about the NFL. We got a problem, period. Everybody's talking about Roger Goodell and this incident with Ray Rice and how it was handled. My response is, how has it been handled everywhere? Look at the numbers that I just read to you. Look at how pervasive this is in our society. So if Roger Goodell is the commissioner and a policy of domestic violence, first-time offender, 6-game suspension, second-time offender, lifetime ban, something that didn't exist in the NFL before, now exists, and as a result, the attention has elevated exponentially to bring attention and awareness to a nation of people because the NFL is that powerful. I call that progress. I call that us taking the necessary steps. More needs to be done now. We don't need to stop here. More needs to be done. But I call that a very progressive step made by Roger Goodell in light of this Ray Rice scenario, this fiasco. So if we understand this and we understand that the problem is pervasive, is it possible that Roger Goodell was a part of the problem because the problem existed so much that it's been pervasive everywhere? And anybody in a leadership position apparently has this problem because that's why the National Organization for Women is in existence, is it not? Because it should be more awareness brought to it, and it has been ignored and neglected by everybody.
Okay, to your point, obviously, the prosecutor in the Ray Rice case and the presiding judge in the Ray Rice case have come under fire of late because they basically let Ray Rice off with a wrist slap, with anger management, what's called pre-trial diversion.
Yes.
Yeah, and they deserve to be. But
their
let's
job.
be careful here that you don't make an excuse for the NFL because it's a societal problem. That doesn't excuse the NFL at all here. You can't use everybody's doing it, so the NFL's okay because they're just part and parcel of society.
No. I'm not excusing it. To excuse the NFL is to act as if they're devoid of criticism and the vitriol and venom that is being aimed at them right now. That would be excusing them. What I'm saying, however, is that when we talk about firing people and getting and taking their livelihood and their career, and don't get me wrong, ain't no pity party for Roger Goodell. He could lose his job and he's still set for life with $44 million he got paid 2 years ago by the NFL owner?
You got it.
I think he'll be fine.
He's good.
But what I'm saying is, if you're going to take somebody's livelihood away from them, you're basically saying they're the problem. And I'm saying to you the numbers, the facts, and the problems that exist when it comes to domestic violence has permeated our society for decades. Decades, years, days, weeks. It's been a problem.
NFLPA has said that it will have no comment on the Associated Press report we've been discussing. Executive Director DeMaurice Smith also told R.J. McManus that the union has yet to be formally informed of Ray Rice's indefinite suspension and questioned why he could be suspended indefinitely when the course of action isn't an option under the league's revamped domestic violence policy. Smith said that they are still waiting to get the delivery of the letter. Jabari joins us again. How are you?
I'm fine.
I almost called you Jabari Parker. Is that okay or no?
No.
Okay, just making sure, because that's not you, correct?
No.
Thank you.
He's a great man.
He is, right? It's a good name. Jabari, what do you make of the NFLPA's response?
Well, I think the NFLPA walks a fine line, with doing his job, which is protecting its constituents, and also for public perception not seeming as if they're condoning this behavior, which is obviously unacceptable, and everybody in the league understands that. But we need to talk about what is going to happen moving forward. The NFLPA needs to make sure that it approaches and it is aggressive with the 32 teams and make sure that they have licensed clinical psychologists in the building. There are none there. The closest thing we have is NFL player director, and what they do is they let us know about programs that are there being implemented, or chaplains in some instances. But what needs to go forward is that there needs to be a licensed clinical psychologist in the building. This is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that we're talking about. There's no reason why there should not be somebody there to talk about.
Time out. The teams I have covered and been around always had not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, but he was employed by the team to evaluate players. You didn't have one?
No. When was this? What team is this?
I can go way back.
No, we're not talking about somebody that you can. You can go out and see anybody. So what it is if you have, as a player, if you want to go out and see somebody, your insurance covers up to 3 visits, and then you pay out of pocket. Now, they have people that they're aligned to, but there needs to be somebody, Skip, in the building that you can talk to, somebody with an office, somebody that's investing in these players.
Day to day.
For the players. But for the fans, what there needs to be, if I was working in the NFLPA, if I was a player rep or if I was on the executive committee, I would make sure that there was an aggressive marketing campaign taking these top NFL players and showing that we are united against domestic violence. This is not something that men can condone. This is not something that we as football players, as professional football players, condone at all. This is not the sign of masculinity. And if I was in that position, I would make sure that our voices, are heard, and that these men stand up and show their support for our women.
All right, Stephen A., your take.
I don't disagree with a single word he said. He's absolutely right. But I think that when you deal with the issue of accountability as it pertains to personnel that needs to be hired, it needs to be employed, the NFL and the NFLPA, I mean, the entire NFL fraternity appears to be about money grabbing in this day and age. I mean, you've got a situation right now where the NFL itself is literally having the audacity to charge somebody to perform at halftime of the Super Bowl. Not pay them, charge them, because we're the big fish and we can do that. We can get away with that. There's just something that just smells so wrong about that. On the part of the Players Association, retired players and some of the issues that they have had or what have you, they make arguments that they wish that the modern day players, along with the Players Association, was more receptive towards helping them. Now, I'm not in a position to make the argument, at least at this particular moment in time, because I would have to do extensively more research before I really could speak from an educated perspective about that. But I do know that that's what I've been told by those guys. Well, if you're hiring somebody for each team, that's going to cause each team money. Who's going to pay for it?
Plenty of it.
Now, it's even though that shouldn't be an issue, we always know it is an issue.
Yeah.
Money is usually at the root of most problems because people are always trying to make a move to protect themselves, to protect their bottom line.
Yeah.
So you always have to connect the dots, and in order to connect the dots, you got to follow the money.
Okay.
Just the way it is.
Okay, I want to get back to one point that Carrie raised as she set up this topic. I find it very curious that D. Smith said of late day yesterday he had not received the formal letter apprising the NFL Players Association that, in fact, officially Ray Rice has been indefinitely suspended. I'm just curious on the part. I have to raise the question because now I'm having all kinds of doubts about the National Football League. Is it possible that they were just paying lip service to indefinite suspension? Is it possible they're just waiting for the world to calm back down and then they will announce, well, it really isn't indefinite, it's whatever our policy is. It's 6 games. I don't know what they could say. Is there any way? Because, look, back to an organization you have long been a member of, NFLPA. It is duty-bound to protect your rights. Unfortunately, in this case, it's on a very slippery slope, as you pointed out, walking that very fine line, because it is up against an overwhelming torrent of public opinion condemning what Ray Rice did.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not going to condemn your organization because it has a responsibility to protect Ray Rice's rights as best it can. But where does it stop? Where does it draw the line? And so it's murky here now because I'm still not sure what the NFL is doing with Ray Rice. Is that fair? I don't know what they're doing.
You're not sure because of the
They didn't send a letter.
It's not been sent to the PA. So
Are we sure he's indefinitely suspended?
And can he be indefinitely suspended under the new domestic violence policy?
Well,
can he be?
Yeah, I'm sure I guess. I'm not. I would have to talk to Deontay and get some
Deontay Morris, we need you on that.
Becoming a star on this show.
The issue, one thing that I wanted to talk about is that the issue, we're here at this moment at an incredible opportunity for the NFL players. NFL players, we know that this is an opportunity for us to come together. We don't need only implementation from upper level management. We don't need only guidelines from the NFL. What we need to do is to take the stand together to really be a resource for our brothers out there. There's so many times in the NFL that production is the only thing that truly matters. You know, I know there's friendships and we love each other, but when it comes down to it, we have to start investing in each other's lives, and not only in whether this guy can get a first down or whether he only knows his blitz or his coverages. There's too many times. Jovan Belcher, Ray Rice, Junior Seau, how many more are we going to have? We have to be able to be as concerned about our brother's marriage, about our brother's fatherhood, about our brother's life, as we are about our brother's career and the production they bring on Sunday. This is our time to react. It can't come from upstairs. This has to come from within.
Well, after hearing Roger Goodell's interview with CBS News yesterday, several NFL players and professional athletes have weighed in on the commissioner's stance. Former Steelers linebacker James Harrison, who was fined heavily by Goodell during his playing days, took a chance to respond. Commissioner, ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun, huh? And Jabari, your former teammate Jonathan Vilma, wasn't concerned, or convinced rather, with Goodell's words. He tweeted, "I know firsthand the commissioner will go to great lengths to gather all evidence, but he purposely did not in this instance. Appalling. If the commissioner had really asked for the video, he would have made it very public and very clear that the casino refused to give it to him." All right. Jabari, your reaction?
Yes, I mean, the bounty issue, I was in the locker room, and it was a very thorough and concise investigation. Ended up vilifying Will Smith and Jonathan Vilma, you know, these two guys that I hold in high regard, and to see them vilified like that, it was incredible.
And you thought it was unfair?
I thought it was unfair. And collectively, as players, in talking to players, everybody thought that the suspensions and the punishment was too harsh. Players have felt for some time that the Roger Goodell's overwhelmingly been harsh in handling penalties and handling fines. $78 million in fines. $78 million in fines since 2006, since Roger Goodell. I remember doing a lockout in 2011. Roger Goodell came up. He went to every league, every team. We sat down and had a meeting. The consensus was, this guy has nothing to do with us. He was taking heat from all 32 teams. There was a big rift in players and ownership, and we saw right there was a clear line that Roger Goodell was on the ownership side. There is no compassion for the players, for Roger Goodell in this moment. No compassion at all.
Interesting.
Stephen A.
Really, y'all want me to touch this? Y'all really sure? Y'all sure about that?
Well, should we? Should we?
You know, hey, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't. Let me say this. I have absolutely no problem with Jonathan Vilma's tweet. He has the right to say, well, they all have the right, but it comes from a good place with Jonathan Vilma. He was victimized by Roger Goodell, according to the report handed down by Paul Tagliabue and what have you. I mean, you don't hear me going on national television and apologizing to a particular individual very often. Right. I mean, that definitely was warranted with Jonathan Vilma, because I thought that the report, I was thinking, NFL, multi-billion-dollar establishment, the security department is elite, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they got this guy. They got Sean Payton out for a year. They got Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator, out indefinitely. Oh, damn, they got him dead to rights. And sure enough, an investigation took place. And Jonathan Vilma, as far as I'm concerned, was vindicated, regardless of how the NFL wanted to paint it. Jonathan Vilma was vindicated. So in that regard, he definitely comes from a good place. But where I disagree with Jabari, respectfully, by the way, because I hear where you're coming from, bro, and I can appreciate your position, and $78 million is a lot of money. You got me there. It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. I understand that. The flip side to it, though, is that when you see players willing to speak out the way that they do against this commissioner, keep in mind he's the commissioner. He is in an authoritative position over the very league you represent. And oh, by the way, it's not like Roger Goodell hasn't had cause. I mean, to listen to some of these guys out there, they're just walking around with innocence emblazoned on their chest. And we know that to be factually incorrect and false. We've learned about somebody committing domestic violence. We've got 2 other cases with McDonald in San Francisco, with Hardy in North Carolina, that in Charlotte, that some people believe even if it is with pay, they still should not be on a field on a Sunday afternoon. We've got guys getting arrested on DUI charges. We've had vehicular manslaughter issues. We've had DUI issues. It is not like the commissioner is sitting on his perch up off of Park Avenue in New York City and saying, let me see who I can mess with next. But this stuff is being brought to his attention because of the irresponsible and, dare I say, sometimes juvenile and reprehensible behavior of some of those players. Now, the NFL players who are not guilty of such things, I'm going to include yourself amongst them, Jabari. We ain't talking to you. But the guys that are actually guilty of some of the things they've been accused of, you have no business tweeting.
No, yeah, I agree.
Commissioner Roger Goodell.
I agree that those people who committed those offenses don't have any stance. And I'm not saying that. The consensus has been divided between support for Roger. Actually, no, it's not even divided. The players have no support because we see how, you put all these stats, the game of football has went from pure joy in his watch to business, which it is a business. But for a player, a pure player, I do not like seeing the game, as a defensive player, the game shift the way that it is. That's what I'm saying. And that is why players have lost their support, because the game of football.
Hold on, Jabari. Hold on, I got you. Question. This is a question. Have you expressed the same thing to your owner, yes or no?
Express the same thing to my owner that I don't.
In other words, what you just said about Roger Goodell.
Yes.
Have you expressed, when you were on the New Orleans Saints, did you express that to the owner?
I have not. No, I have not.
Well, let me ask you this question.
Okay.
Well, if the owner cuts the check for Roger Goodell, and Roger Goodell is answering to the owner, and the owner, and y'all saying that Roger Goodell is for the owner, well, they employ him. How do you not understand that?
I'm losing the links that you.
Listen,
what does it mean?
Jabari, I work for ESPN.
Yes.
I'm sorry. There's a level of sensitivity, of heightened sensitivity, that I'm going to have for Mr. Wildtack, or Mr. Norby Williamson, or Mr. John Skipper, the bosses here at ESPN, that I'm not going to have for Comcast.
Yes.
Or Fox. I don't work for them.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Goodell works for the owners.
Yes.
How are y'all holding against him something that's so obvious? He works for them. That's who he answers to. He doesn't answer to y'all. Yeah. He answers to the owners. What is he supposed to do?
Good point.
Bayless.
Unfortunately, we've strayed far from the point here, so I'm going to have to bring it way
back.
Back.
But that's okay.
Okay. All right. I have absolutely no issue with any of these gloating style tweets from these players because of what you said to start with. I must say, in Roger Goodell's first year on this show, I often applauded his cracking down on player misbehavior because the previous commissioner, Paul Tagliabue, had gone soft on it way to a fault. But as Roger Goodell felt more and more powerful, and we started to call him judge, jury, and executioner, the czar of punishment, I think he got a little too full of himself. And he started to go over the edge and finally went completely over the edge in your team's case with Bountygate. And that previous commissioner ironically came in as the arbitrator and said, enough, you blew this one, I vacate all of these suspensions. Sure. So now we have all kinds of players, and this is incredible that, remember, this commissioner is uniformly loved by his owners and bosses. All 32 really believe in Roger Goodell. Yet you say all 32 teams despise Roger Goodell.
No, I didn't say despise.
Well, but don't like him. Don't love him.
No,
whatever.
Don't like him. I mean, not don't like him, but there's obviously some.
Sure, but I think it is they do not like him. I think it's.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, there are, because we understand how the game has changed.
Oh.
And as players, we understand that he is not on our side, even though we're supposed to be working together.
That's the fact.
Okay.
And we often have Ryan Clark on, and he is anti-Roger Goodell.
And
I'm okay with that. So now the reaction of the players is that what goes around has come back around, Roger. And again, it's turnabout is very fair play here. And back to James Harrison, again, has he deserved me? You better believe he's deserved. But there's some fines that he got on reputation, and he probably had a point that the commissioner was cracking down on him a little unfairly. So he's basically saying, ain't no fun when the rabbit's got the gun, because the rabbit was hunted by the hunter, and now all of a sudden the rabbit's got the gun from the hunter.
Yeah.
And the hunter's saying, oh, I'm on the hot seat here, because the hunter, Roger Goodell, is on the hot seat. He's
Great translation.
Yes, thank you very much.
Well done.
just in case. And finally, remember what Roger Goodell, the irony of this whole thing is, remember what he said to Sean Payton about Bountygate?
Okay.
Ignorance is no excuse. Really, Commish?
Yeah, because right now you feel as
ignorant?
if...
Oh, you didn't
his words
know?
are coming back to haunt
Well, then you should have no excuse. You run this front office here,
all right,
and a tape was delivered, and you're saying, I didn't know about any tape.
Welcome back to First Take, everyone. Our show is ending soon. I know you're sad about it, but before we get to our last topic, they're at home. They're sad. I could see the tears. Jabari, you're a free agent.
I am.
And you have options. Mm-hmm. So where do we go from here? What are we doing with ourselves?
I don't know.
Oh. Whoa, wait a second. What does that say on that cup? R-E-T?
He's retiring, guys.
Oh, you're retired?
Wait a second. So you made that announcement here on First Take. That's it for you. Your career is over.
I had a blast.
Are you sure this isn't a boxing retirement where you tell us in a month that you're coming back to play for the Dallas Cowboys because they need you right now?
Oh, man. I had a great time.
Okay.
You could star for them.
Yeah, he could right now. I already told him, Stephen A., I need him. But this is it.
Wait a second. So Jerry Jones don't call because you're done.
Don't call.
All right. We leave it there. Well, then let's talk about what we expect to see tonight. Stephen A., we couldn't get to the question. I want you to have a lot of time to say. Yeah, we'll do it tomorrow. What do we expect tonight, love?
Like I told you, I think when you look at the Ravens, I think right now they just look like a better team defensively. I'm really down on the Steelers for giving up that 24-point lead to the Cleveland Browns. I think going into Baltimore with the momentum, I just think this is Baltimore's night. Baltimore 20-17. It'll be a dogfight, but I think they're going to manage to pull it out against the Steelers tonight.
What do you think, Jabari?
Baltimore 17-14. Big night for Justin Forsett. Big night for Torrey Smith. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Steve Smith also do some special things.
Of course, with that name, he's going to do it.
You know what? I agree with you times two.
Yeah.
I think Pittsburgh's defense is torchable. Brian Hoyer torched that defense. So I'm going to say I'm going a higher score than you guys are. I'm going one more echelon. I'm going all the way up to Ravens 30-28.
Okay.
Now, whether Pittsburgh could score 38, I respect Big Ben, and I think he's going to have a big year. I just don't think they're going to be able to make the playoffs because of their
big year, but not big night.
Jabari, we're getting ready to get out of here. We got about maybe 45 seconds or so. Tell us why you decided to come here and announce retirement.
Well, what better place than amongst distinguished gentlemen and ladies?
All right. Well, it makes sense. I mean, why not? It is First Take.
It's debatable about the gentleman, but not the lady.
Hi, I'm a lady.
Yeah.
I don't know about those two.
Yep.
But I love them anyway. All right. Thank you so much for joining us.